Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
High-quality forage is a key resource for cattle producers. Today, we're focusing on the best ways to grow more grass and maximize profitability in your cattle operation.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Thanks so much for joining us. No matter where you raise cattle, grass is an essential and low-cost feed source. Maximizing forage helps your farm or ranch stay profitable and sustainable, and that's a powerful incentive to do everything you can possibly do to get the most out of every grazing acre. Today, we're sharing some expert advice on how to get more grass production from your pastures. We're here at Blackbeard's Ranch in Florida. Jim Strickland and his family are our host today. Jim, tell us just a little bit about this ranch and about the role forages play in your operation.
Well, welcome to Florida. Welcome to Blackbeard's. I think everybody knows where Tampa is. We've heard of the Bolts and hockey. Might have heard of Tom Brady and the Buccaneers and Tampa Buccaneers. And of course, we got a pretty good baseball team. But we are about an hour south of Tampa. We are about 45 minutes from Siesta Beach, which was just rated the #4 beach in the United States of America. This is about a 5,000 acre cattle ranch. We're primarily a cow-calf operation here. We depend on grass. It is all grass. We don't feed a lot of feed here, a little bit of liquid molasses. So grass is so vitally important to us here. We're about 6 miles long, and we have the headwaters of the drinking supply of a community on the Gulf that starts right here on that ranch. Talking about forages, we have a variety of forages here. We depend on grass. That's what makes us our living. It makes us sustainable is the grasses. So we have slough systems here with native grasses. We have flatwoods, native pine flatwoods, has a different variety of grasses. We have tame grasses like these behind us, which are Bahia grasses. We also have some larger hay type grasses like Amotheria, Jigs, and Bermuda here too. So we've got a lot of variety, and we appreciate those varieties.
So many grasses I've never heard of coming from Colorado, but anxious to learn more about that. Also with us today is Jeff Clark, Corteva's Pasture Market Development Specialist. Jeff, tell us a little bit about the grazing conditions that we can expect in the coming year across the United States.
Yeah, Kevin, and thanks. It's great to be here once again, and thanks to Jim for having us out here on this wonderful and beautiful ranch. I tell you what, Kevin, conditions this year are just, it's crazy. You've got drought, you've got moisture. We're seeing some weather patterns that are just kind of all making us scratch our head. But what it comes down to is whether you're in a drought or you're in a heavy moisture condition, we've got to make sure that we're focusing in on our forages, because that's going to be our sustainable in the cattle industry moving forward into 2022. Watching those market prices, but at the end of the day, we've got to have those valuable forages to make sure that we are staying in that cattle business.
Absolutely. Good times ahead if we can keep a hold of this cow herd.
Good times ahead if we can just maintain the herds that we have.
Absolutely. Also with us, Haley Addison comes to us. She is the range and pasture specialist for Corteva. Haley, what do you believe are some of the biggest challenges for cattle producers in terms of managing forage?
Absolutely. Sometimes in production agriculture, it's easier to list the challenges we don't have than the challenges we do. Growing successful pastures can be challenged by, as Jeff was talking about this year, weather patterns. Overgrazing can challenge our pastures, and also increased input costs. That might be a big one this year. I think the most important thing to realize is, regardless of the set of challenges that we face, because it is different for each production, the importance is prioritizing those forages to make sure we're making it a key part of our profitability.
Very good. So, Jim, tell us a little bit about that. I mean, what are some of the things you do here on Blackbeard's to optimize your forages?
Well, we're a pyrogenic state to begin with. Florida is one of the lightning capitals of the world right here. I mean, a lot of our species, a lot of our grasses, so our species, whether it's palm trees or grasses or the wildlife, depend on fire. So we have a robust control burning program here to where we burn a lot of tame pastures, but we burn a lot of native pastures at different times of years to maximize that grass production, because that's what we're always looking for, is maximizing that grass production, because we are grass oriented practice here. We do apply fertilizer. very judiciously, extremely judiciously in this time period now. We do a lot of forage samples, a lot of soil samples. We work with University of Florida all the time. We work with our friends that help us with our weed problem. We're in Florida. We're subtropical. We have some issues down here also.
I suspect that's true. Anxious to learn more about that. Jeff, a lot of people we've had on the show refer to themselves as grass farmers, beef cattle producers. I'm grass farmer first. Should beef cattle producers think of themselves more like crop producers do in terms of forage production?
Absolutely, Kevin, and I hope that they do that, because you take corn, for instance. It's a grass, and you see the inputs and the management styles that the row croppers put into that. If we would take that same mindset and remember that forage is what, again, is keeping our cattle industry really thriving, really going, and we would take care of those input costs, input necessities, we would have grass. Again, outside of weather conditions, but we would have grass that we would need to continue grazing extra days, and not putting that grass in a stressful situation.
That's a great point. Haley, is there an ideal time to start a pasture treatment program? I mean, when do we know we need to pull the trigger?
Absolutely, Kevin. The absolute best time you could have started a pasture treatment program would have been yesterday, and the second best time is now.
Gotcha.
It's never too soon to start prioritizing your forages and making the most out of your lowest cost feed source.
That's great recommendations, and anxious to learn more about some of the products you all have to help us do just that. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we're going to dig deeper into the topic of pasture management and offer some practical advice for producers in all parts of the country. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Weeds will rob me of my investments. The weeds are not palatable to cows. They will not eat them. Or if they do eat them, some of them may be toxic. So there's a return on investment by allowing there to be more grass available to be grazed by the cattle.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Retailers, shopping channels, and now even banks have tried to cancel myself and MyPillow. Well, during these times, your support has meant everything to us. So my employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you by passing the savings directly on to you. We're selling the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have my standard size MyPillow, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Or you can get custom fit with my premium queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now just $29.98. Or my king size, regular $89.98, now just $34.98. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen, or call the 1-800 number below to receive this exclusive offer. If you do it right now, I'm going to include a free gift with your purchase. Thank you and God bless.
Welcome back to this special edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, as we talk about the value of grass and forage resources. Jeff, give us a little bit of an idea about the specific losses weeds can create on an operation.
Absolutely, Kevin, and that's one thing that we focus primarily here with Corteva is that weed removal, because if we allow our weeds to outcompete our forages that our cattle need, number one, it's going to be a big cattle impact. Our stocking rates will go down. We're going to have to sell maybe some good quality heifers or mama cows that are still have longevity of production because we can't have that much grazing pressure. Number two is the elimination of nutrients and water that the weeds so aggressively take away from our forages. And then at that point in time, you might have to use a little bit more herbicide. You might have to use some more fertilizer. And we know as input costs go up, we need to manage that. So, stocking capacity an issue, nutrient part of it an issue. And just one more thing, Kevin, if we allow those weeds to really manage our forages, to try to get a pasture back into grazing production, you can easily go in and invest 3 to 5 years worth, and then that's a big impact on our bottom line.
Yeah, you make a great point with today's fertilizer prices. I don't want to be fertilizing anything except what cows can eat. Jim, tell us about the weed pressures you have here in Florida.
A lot of them. A lot of them. Let me start out with our aquatics. We have primrose willow here, and primrose willow will, get so tall then it grows in water, and it'll grow whether it's dry or in 2 or 3 feet of water, and it shades out some of those really good waterland species of grasses. We talk about grass. Yep. It shades those out. In addition to that, we have tropical soda apple. It grows everywhere. It's carried by the birds. It's carried by the raccoons and the deer and the wild hogs that we have here. And a lot of states at one time actually wouldn't allow our cattle to come out of Florida if we had certain areas that we had so much tropical soda apple. We also have Cogan's grass. Grows a lot down there in the flatwoods. We have Brazilian pepper. Pretty evident where that came from. So, Brazilian pepper will grow. It'll take forage. It'll shade out a lot of things that we need. So we've got a big variety. We have the upland and we have those wetland species, and you have to have a really good program. We cannot go in there by hand and get rid of those. We cannot. And a lot of them get to our bottom line, to sustainability and our resilience to live off this thing. So we depend on a lot of folks to advise us on how to handle those.
But like most operations, you've got lots of things to do on a day-to-day basis in a large operation like this. How do you prioritize weed management and pasture management in and amongst all the other chores and to-do lists that you're navigating on a day-to-day basis?
We depend on a lot of people. I don't get up in the morning and make all those decisions. I depend on University of Florida and their research facilities. We've got a research facility 45 minutes from here. I depend on our friends from Corteva. They have been very helpful on what species, when you do it. So, we have to be trained. We cannot be nutritionists and we can't be everything, geneticists and continue. Right. We have to depend on people that know more than we do. And learning from them, we learn that it's, especially in weed control here in Florida, we're subtropical, we grow everything down here, that we have to depend on them to tell us when to apply whatever we do to those weeds to get a handle on them.
So tell me this, you've got them standing right next to you, but how important have Corteva products specifically been on this ranch?
Well, very important, extremely important, because our bottom line depends on grass, because besides cattle and pounds of beef, we also do seed. We also do sod. The fastest growing communities in the United States are within an hour of this ranch. Some of the best beaches in the world are within hours. You see the growth pattern. So we do a lot of sod harvesting, seed harvesting. We're in the hay business too. So that same pasture you see behind you and I, that's going to graze cattle that probably have a winter forage after we've cut sod. Wow. It has also been seeded. We've put the combines in there and combined the bahia seed before that, the hay after that, then the sod. Then we put some sort of winter grazer in there. That's usually about in the fall, whenever we start harvesting sod. Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for weeds.
That's phenomenal. Just cropping systems and management systems that is difficult for me to think of coming from the semi-arid West. Haley, I'm curious. Obviously, you all sell herbicides, but why don't we just come in and mow these weeds when there's a problem?
Well, I think a lot of times the default assumption is that mowing is our cheapest option. But if you ever take the time to actually put pen to paper, that's not the case at all. When we're considering our input costs, our fuel costs, our man hours that it takes to mow, the ROI is just not there. And you actually don't have to put the pen to paper. We have a really neat tool available that does all that math for you. Okay. It's an ROI investment on mowing versus spraying. So you put in the numbers for your operation and it tells you exactly how much money you may be leaving on the table by mowing instead of spraying. And that tool is at calculator.rangeandpasture.com.
And I'd like to just, add on to that of what Haley said is that why mow when that's what you're trying to grow? You're trying to grow forages, but yet you're out there mowing the forages. And to make one thing known is that when you go out there and you eliminate 1 inch of grass blade, that's 300 pounds of dry matter forage that you are completely eliminating. Well, that's feed. That means you're taking feed and throwing it away from the cows and saying good luck.
Yeah. So make sure you're targeting that, and herbicides provide an opportunity for us to do just that.
That's right.
So how do you evaluate your pastures to know if there's a problem to address? Here's Scott Flynn in the field with some helpful advice.
From year to year, we're usually not shocked to see certain weeds pop up again and again. But I think every spring, most producers, cattle producers, can walk out into their pastures and they get this warm, fuzzy feeling when they look out across the field and they see everything that's green. But when you start digging in between grass plants and looking down at what's coming up, you'll see that there are quite a few weeds popping up in your pasture during that time, even though everything looks nice and green. Now the problem is, a field like this that has some patches of annual weeds that have kind of taken over, these patches are eventually going to die out here in a few weeks when we get into the later parts of spring, early parts of summer. And that's great. But the problem is they're going to be replaced with another broadleaf weed more than likely, or even a weedy grass. And so there's several options here. One, you can do absolutely nothing. And in that case, we let nature take its course. And what we find ourselves doing is coming back with a mower a few weeks later and trying to get control of weeds or suppress weeds that way. The other option is to go the cheap route with a herbicide, something like a 2,4-D. And you go in and spray that into a field and we burn down the weeds. But the thing is, we just open up that soil to allow other broadleaf weeds to come into our pasture. And then the third option is to come in with a good soil residual herbicide that's actually going to hold those weeds back for a period of time, several weeks, and it's going to give us the time we need to backfill those bare spots with grasses. Add a little soil fertility on it, and we just make things happen that much faster. So at the end of the day, the best bang for our buck in a pasture early spring is to get on those weeds as soon as possible, get them under control, and start shifting that competitive advantage back to our forage grass species.
So Jeff, Scott didn't talk about specific products, but you all have a product called Duracore that's been an absolute game changer. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. So Duracore came out through Corteva about 2 years ago. It is powered by aminopyrrolid and Rinsecore. It is a very versatile herbicide. We're talking one that controls 140 plus weeds. Basically a weed spectrum that catches all geographic areas of the United States. So tropical soda apple here in Florida, your biennials like your thistles, some of your winter annuals and summer annuals. So we're talking buttercup, and we're talking perennial weeds like ironweed or goldenrod or plantain. Some of those really harder to control weeds.
Sure.
This is where Duracore really makes that flow on these ranches so much easier and really does control more than what our other herbicides we have put out.
So what makes this broadleaf herbicide specifically different than some of the other broadleaf control?
So not only just because it controls more weeds, but we're talking about a herbicide that has a lower use rate, number one. So we're saying, 12 to 20 ounces is your use rate. Gotcha. Whereas, Graze On Next is 24 to 32. So we have a little bit, we can cover more ground with less product. So that would be number one. Number two is there's really no volatile properties to it. So the volatility concern is really decreased by using Duracore because there's no 2,4-D involved in it. Then number three, there's no smell. So with other herbicides, when you open up a jug, you're going to get a pretty good smell of the herbicide. With Duracore, you don't have that smell. So if you're spraying in an area where down the road you might have a little bit of a suburb or something, you don't have to worry about that concern of will they smell what I'm trying to do. And if I may add, with Duracore, it is one of the easiest herbicides in our portfolio that is able to be blended with liquid fertilizer or put on that fertilizer prill for an Ulti Graze application.
I want to talk to you more about that a bit later, but if you were to just summarize then what people should be thinking about in terms of key benefits, what are the bullet points you'd have them think about?
Yeah, bullet points is I can get across more ground with less herbicide use with Duracore. Yes. Number two, I'm getting more weeds controlled than suppressed with other herbicides. And then again, number three, just the safety effects, the easy use effects with Duracore, it makes it really the easiest herbicide to go get off the shelf and go put in your pasture.
That's really exciting technology. Thanks for that insight.
Absolutely.
Now remember, you can find out more information on this game-changing product in broadleaf weed control by visiting the website DuracoreHerbicide.com. Still ahead on NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll discuss how good fertility goes hand in hand with good weed control. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
In the world of cattle vaccines, when you see fewer reactions, you'll notice healthier cattle and higher profits too. Because sometimes good protection is about what you don't see. Protect your productivity with cattle vaccines from Merck Animal Health. Proven to cause fewer reactions. You'll like what you see. Our trusted portfolio is just one more way Merck Animal Health works for you. Talk to your veterinarian and visit cattlefriendlyvaccines.com to learn more.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today.
If you're connected with the beef cattle business, then you should like the NCBA page on Facebook. The NCBA Facebook page shares photos, news, and valuable information about the beef cattle industry. You can also follow the NCBA Twitter feed at Beef USA. So stay in touch with NCBA on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. Today, we're discussing ways to improve the use of forage in a cattle operation with the experts from Corteva. Jeff, what role does fertility play in forage management?
Yeah, Kevin, great question. Everything. It's your engine. Yeah. So if we're wanting to have truly good, healthy, high protein, good TDN forages that can make it through some stressful times, we got to make sure that we're looking underneath the soil, not just on top of the soil. We need to make sure that our fertility is in check. We're feeding that grass, we're feeding its root system, and again, eliminating those weeds so they can grow properly.
So let me put you on the spot. What's more important, weed control or fertility?
Kevin, they're both equally important. Number one, weed control is important because we've got to get the weeds out of the way. They are our nutrient thieves. They shade out grasses. They really do make a negative impact. But at the end of the day, we cannot cheat our fertility. We got to make sure that our pH stays up where our grasses are needing to grow healthily, somewhere around that 6 to 7, 6.5 to 7 range. But we are also wanting to make sure that our root system of our grasses and our top growth of our grasses are growing healthily at the same, basically at the same time. We're not just getting a real big top growth and a little shallow root system, and then again, either heavy grazing or a drought comes through, and then it really does wipe out that grass. So to answer your question, they're both equally important. It's just how do we approach those?
And I guess the reason I asked the question is particularly in a year like this where we have incredibly high fertilizer prices, I think a lot of the questions that folks like myself are asking with some improved pasture is, if I've done a decent job from a fertility standpoint the last couple of years, can I cheat that a little bit this year and kind of just make sure I get my weeds controlled and put a lower rate of fertilizer, or what would you recommend?
I would recommend this. Don't make an emotional decision. Stay business minded. Go take that soil sample that you're used to taking. Let's go ahead and check and see where our pH is at. If you've had a really good fertility program in years past, your soil fertility is where it needs to be to produce the forages that you're needing to grow. Then this might be a time where you say, I don't maybe go out and put out as much fertilizer, but I pick the pastures, or I pick the hayfield that I need. And the reason I say hayfield, Kevin, is because most people, when they go out and they cut their grass for hay production, don't put back truly the amount of nutrients that a hayfield needs, because you're taking so much yield off of it. So if you're going to skip anything this year to try to save money and put towards that bottom line, I fully understand that completely. Let's keep that same business management practice in play with the soil samples, and maybe position our fertilizer a little bit more tightly than maybe a wide spread. So that hayfield, because that is your pastures in the wintertime.
So another input that is rising dramatically in cost, of course, is fuel. And I understand that you all have a product that allows us to apply both fertilizer and herbicide in one pass, obviously resulting in fuel savings. Tell us more about that.
Yes, sir, Kevin, that's Ulti Graze. So Ulti Graze is taking your dry fertilizer, putting in a Corteva residual herbicide with it, blending it all together and doing a one-pass system. And this is going to control, again, your weeds that you have out there. Not all your weeds, because it does work differently than a spray application, but we're still in a high percentile that your return of investment is going to show. It's going to give you what you're really looking for. Number two, it is keeping your soil fertility in check. And again, it's simple. You can have the retailer in your area that does do this come out and put it out, or you can put it out yourself.
Okay.
And again, it's a one-pass system. It's saving you time. It's saving you money instead of going over that field multiple times. And again, increasing that diesel fuel cost.
Thanks for your insights. They're so important given these times of high input prices we're living through. Let's take a minute and hear from some individuals who have experienced firsthand how Ulti Graze can put more grass in your fields and more money in your pockets.
You get your fertilizer put on, you get some nutrients added to your soil, and you're getting weed control that they never could get before. And lots of times it was due because they were spraying too late. Now they're getting timely applications of herbicide and getting fertilizer on both at the proper timing. And it's been just a win-win for using both of those technologies.
Most of our producers fertilize their hay fields religiously, and then pastures can, are as needed. If they're stocking more cattle, they'll fertilize their pastures, and that just helps them grow more grass and raise more cattle. On pastures, if they put fertilizer on their pastures or hay fields and no weed control, they're growing pounds of weeds also. And so with some weed controls, it makes a big difference on their production. The results we've seen have been very, very good, better than we had assumed, because most of this research has been 85 to 90% control compared to spraying. We're seeing 100% control of spraying just because they're getting out there earlier when the weeds are smaller. All our customers have been very happy with the results that they've received.
We was having a bit of a thistle issue. We was having some ragweed issue. And so we used it. And on that 60 acres this year, I don't think I had 3 thistles on the whole deal. There was no ragweed whatsoever. My grass was, thicker, better, a lot healthier. Once we got the weeds out of the way, the grass kind of come along and blanketed and covered the ground. And I feel like my cattle done better. They stayed healthier, looked better. It just lets you keep your grass in better shape to withstand a drought, the adverse effect of the weather might put on it.
So Jeff, are there any special considerations or even limitations with Ulti Graze?
Yes, sir. So Kevin, when we're using and talking about Ulti Graze, we want to make sure that you understand, or the rancher understands, that it's powered by a residual herbicide through Corteva Agriscience. So if this is an application you want to do, yet you can't use a residual herbicide, or you don't want a residual herbicide on this particular field, Ulti Graze probably won't be an option for you. And then the other one is the availability for Ulti Graze in your area there.
So how does a person get started with Ulti Graze?
So they would go and contact their range and pasture specialist with Corteva and talk with them about Ulti Graze. First of all, ask exactly what is Ulti Graze, what does it do for my operation, and then that Corteva range and pasture specialist can help you find a Ulti Graze retailer to get that set up for you in your operation.
Very good. Thanks so much for that information.
Yes, sir.
Now, to learn more about the benefits of Ulti Graze, visit the website ultigraze.com/C2C. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll dig deeper into the dollars and cents of why producers should invest in their pastures and rangelands. Stay with us.
Are you ready for a better shot at profitability with a more consistent, more efficient cow herd? Then don't miss out on the maternal edge offered by Gelbvieh and Balancer Genetics.
Stayability and longevity is really a strength of the Gelbvieh breed, and when these cows can remain in the herd 10 years or thereabouts, they return a lot of dollars to the producers.
Research shows Gelbvieh cows will stay in your herd longer with greater fertility and more pounds of calf weaned.
It's the ability of that cow not only to have that calf unassisted, but to own that calf, to stay right there with that calf, to do whatever's necessary to get that calf going no matter what. No breed we work with does a better job of owning that calf and making sure that she's going to take care of than the Gelbvieh breed.
For cow-calf producers, the maternal traits offered by Gelbvieh and Balancer Genetics are the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. Find out more at the website gelbvieh.org.
We didn't just design the 6M tractors with you in mind, we designed them with you by our side. The new 6M tractors from John Deere, reimagined by you, for you. For a limited time, get 0% APR financing on qualifying 6 Series tractors and round balers. Experience the new 6M at your local John Deere dealer.
Welcome back. We're focusing on ways to improve the use of forage in a cattle operation. And joining us once again is our host, Jim Strickland, and Jeff Clark with Corteva. Gentlemen, I want to start with you, Jeff, and talk just briefly about the role high-quality forage plays in overall herd health.
Absolutely, Kevin. Great question. When we talk about herd health, most ranchers won't put Corteva up there, as one of the herd health leaders. But in all actuality, we are, because we are helping you as the rancher develop that good quality forage that does play a major factor in overall herd health. You got to remember, without good quality forage, you won't be in the livestock or at least the cattle industry, because cattle have to have forage just to survive.
And good health starts with good nutrition, undoubtedly. Jim, in your operation, what role does grazing play in overall herd performance?
Absolutely everything. Without it, we don't have anything. We can't afford to buy feed. We're in South Florida. We look at where you can buy feed. We look at where you can, your input costs. We can't do that. It's got to be, grass is everything to us. Not only grass for the cattle, but for our hay crops, for our seed crops. All of that. Grass is, without grass, we're not in business.
You mentioned that you don't feed cattle, so how does the role of grazing and good pasture management impact the overall cost basis of your operation?
Well, we're going through some pretty tough times right now looking at input costs. We're looking at fertilizer. We're looking at a lot of feed costs. We're looking at, the corn prices being high. Is one thing that I've learned, and a lot of my country has been on leased land, is I never overstock. If NRCS says I can stock 700 head of cows here, it's probably going to be about 500 head. That I've had leased pastures that you can lose a lease. So I've learned that over the last 50 years. So we're never overstocked. But we also do reach out to a lot of different people. So whether it's IFAS, University of Florida, whether it's Corteva, whether it's NRCS, there's a lot of cost share programs that we can do. I reach out to every single one of those, every single one. And let's not forget drought programs. We talk about grass, it's hedging your bets.
Right. So for folks watching this show who believe they want to use a product to improve their forage base and their pastures, how do they begin selecting the right product for their operation?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kevin, and this is where I would start off. Contact your local Corteva range and pasture specialist. They will come out to your operation. They'll help you identify the weeds that you're maybe having problem with. They'll even identify if those weeds are toxic or not to your livestock operation. They'll also identify some brush species, because we could go in there and do one spray and control all broadleaf and brush at one time. But the other thing is, when they put a plan together for you, is can we go in there in the spring? Is that when you're having more issues? Or is it the summertime? And being proactive, like we really do preach constantly, if we can get in there in the springtime at the right time and get really aggressive, you can use lower rates of herbicide, cover more ground, and then let your forages do what they are supposed to do. Grow healthily without the competition of broadleaf weeds in them.
But it really all does begin with a plan, right?
It all begins with a plan, that's right.
And you have a team of professionals that can help us do just that.
Absolutely. Across the United States, we have range and pasture specialists ready to assist you on, again, helping you with your forages, helping you with identifying broadleaf weeds and brush, and then getting you the right product for your operational needs.
Outstanding. Now remember, it all starts with grass. For more information on how high-quality grazing can influence productivity, a great resource is the website herdhealth.rangeandpasture.com. Still ahead, we'll examine the Environmental Stewardship Award program and the value those winners bring to the entire beef industry. Stay with us.
Take advantage of the very best in Hereford genetics with the Sandhill Farm's annual production sale, Saturday, March 26th.
We've really tried to put a lot of carcass traits in our cattle. Ultimately, that's going to be a driver in price and profit.
I buy bulls from Sandhills because in the end, there's more money in my pocket selling the end product.
The Schultz family focuses on continuous genetic improvement of their Hereford cattle year after year.
I view everybody that sits in the seats at our sale as our boss. We want our genetics to get better every year. We've got to make the next set of bulls that the customer comes to purchase genetically better than the ones before.
Sandhill Farms, the brand that exceeds your goals. Find out more at the website sandhillfarms.com.
Welcome back to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen, where today we're talking with our friends from Corteva about good pasture management. Now recently, Corteva brought together several sectors of the beef cattle industry to talk about sustainability issues. Here's one of the highlights as the panel discussed why it's important to educate consumers about the beef industry.
As I think back, we didn't talk a lot about sustainability in with regards to broader society, but we talked a lot about farming and ranching stewardship 20 years ago. Sustainability, I think, is front and center within consumers and society today, and there are impacts on the beef industry, and I've seen that ramp up greatly. We're talking about a really neat animal that has a rumen and can really do some great things from an upcycling perspective, but we've got to get it into sound bites that consumers can understand, and also audiences beyond just consumers. So I think that's a challenge we've got to get that message broadly understood.
When we talk about sustainability, you usually get one of three reactions. Those who put their arms up and said, here we go again. Those whose eyes just kind of glaze over and go to their phone, and those that go, yeah, this is where we need to be. And what we're trying to do is get all of our community to understand that we have to be at the table because of these detractors, because of the misinformation. And if, as an industry, we are fragmented in our response, we are not going to mount an effective campaign to get out there and combat that misinformation and truly show the leadership that's been identified by all of our panelists thus far and what we can do as an industry.
Now, if you'd like to see more of that roundtable discussion or just want more information on the topic of sustainability in the beef industry, visit rangeandpasture.com/sustainability. Growing good grass is one way a cattle producer can be a good steward of the land. And that commitment is on display right here at Blackbeard's Ranch, which is a former national winner of the Environmental Stewardship Award. Corteva has been a longtime sponsor of Esap, and we asked their pasture and land management leader, Damon Palmer, to explain why this program is so important to them.
I think it's more important now than it's ever been. And you know, it's been important over the last 30 years. It's been very rewarding for Corteva and Heritage Dow AgriSciences to support that. But as we look at society today and the focus on greenhouse gases, sustainability, whatever the word is today, cattle ranchers, farmers often get the finger pointed at them. And at Corteva Agriscience, we truly believe farmers and ranchers are part of the solution. And so it's more important now than it's ever been over the last 30 years. I would love for the people that I come in contact with to sit down and watch the videos of all these regional winners, because that says it all. I think that totally changes the conversation of somebody that may question agriculture today or question cattle production as part of the solution. If they see those videos and they see what they're pouring back into the land to truly leave it better than how they received it, I think will change a lot of minds and a lot of opinions.
And joining us once again is Jim Strickland. Jim, Blackbeard's Ranch joined a very elite group of ranches across the country as being one of the national winners of the Environmental Stewardship Award. What has winning this award meant to your ranch?
Opportunity. One, it gives me an opportunity to thank everybody associated with this award. The judges spent so much time going through a heck of a lot of really great ranches from California to Georgia. Opportunity to thank you. Another one of the opportunities is to tell our story. Yeah. By the very nature of who we are, we don't want to toot our horns. We're pretty independent, kind of closed door once in a while with our business. But now's the opportunity that we have to actually blow that horn. Right. And if you have any desire to do this, I would strongly encourage you. Small ranch, mom and pop ranch, to a larger ranch, whatever operation, I would strongly encourage you, because the opportunity that you'll have in your region, if you win or you win that regional award, gives you an opportunity, because we're not gaining more ranch land every day. Right. We're losing more ranch land every day. We're losing a lot of things that we hold dear to us. So embrace that. So what it's really given me the opportunity to do here, and I'm going to strongly encourage every single person to do this, is bridge that opportunity to tell your story, to blow that horn of what ranch land does. So there's more to it than beef.
You mentioned telling the story, and I think you're in a really unique position because how many millions of people live within about 2 hours of this ranch? You've shared that before, but you are in a populous area of the United States, and by such, you've had an opportunity to have lots of people on this ranch. Tell us a little bit about some of the experiences you've had with bringing the population of Florida to this ranch.
We've got about 22 million people here in the great state of Florida. We've got about 1,000 people moving in every week, brand new. Right now, you can't buy a home in the state of Florida. Over your right shoulder, over my left shoulder, is one of the fastest growing residential planned communities in the United States of America. Wow. To my right is Lake Okeechobee. And so we are in a high growth state. Not only are we in a high growth state, but we are losing ranch land by leaps and bounds. I am not anti-growth. I'm not anti-building. That what I think we need to do, what I know we need to do, and science tells us we need to do it, is have a balance. And being an Esap Award winner has given me that opportunity to tell that story about balancing what we provide, which is a whole nother story of what the ranches of the United States of America provide to those people that don't set foot on our ranches. But it gives us that opportunity to tell that story.
What is one of the biggest misconceptions you've heard from folks that have toured this ranch?
That's pretty easy. They look at this land and what do they see? They see a really pretty pastoral picture of vacant land. Don't forget vacant, because they're accustomed to seeing buildings, they're accustomed to seeing growth, they're accustomed to seeing new bank buildings or a new McDonald's, so whenever we have those things that spring up, of which we all enjoy and we all want those things, but it has to be a balance. It truly has to be a balance. So what the misconception is, it's vacant. If you pull up here with a family of 4 and they look across and say, look at the pretty cows and the green grass, and boy, that's beautiful. That's great. What I'd like for them one day to pull up there and pull up to this ranch and say, look at those cattle. Look at what they do. Look at how they remove carbon out of the grass. Look at the carbon sequestration that those wetlands do. Do you know, Dad, that wetland down there sequesters this amount of carbon as opposed to the uplands? And look at all the trees that actually work to provide oxygen. Now, look at that land for filtrating water that goes downstream. And here in Florida, everybody's downstream. You come to Florida, you come for beaches, you come for sport fishing, you come for Disney World, you come for a lot of those things. We need to be able to show them that in addition to those, we also have endangered species habitat. And in addition to those, we actually have wildlife corridors that allow the wildlife to go back into through the Florida Ecological Greenways Network. But we have to bring science in. And I've been blessed, truly blessed, to be affiliated with scientists. So we can take our story And when we walk in, we're a believable group. Ranchers or farmers are a believable group. We can tell our story. If you take a scientist with you, they will validate that story by research. So you can't beat the scientist and the cowboy.
That's fantastic suggestion. And one last question. We talked a lot about Florida. What do you think the Environmental Stewardship Award program means to the entire beef industry at large?
You're not seeing ranch land or something better in the ecological environmental state. What you're seeing is ranch land change to something different. Yeah. So right now, other than pristine forest, you're looking at ranch lands as being that buffer. So you need to tell that story. Not only does ranch land do what pristine forest does, but it also employs people. It also buys products. It also pays taxes. So tell that story. We have a great story, but you have to get out there. You may not want to toot that horn, but we need to blow that bugle on what we do from one end of this country to the other.
That's outstanding. Don't toot the horn, blow the bugle. And I want to tell you, Jim, a lot of talented folks. You're one of the best at telling that story. And we thank you for the time and the investment you've made to not just improve this operation, but to tell the story to so many people. Thank you so much. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the Environmental Stewardship Award winners, see photos and videos, or even learn how to nominate someone for the award, visit the website environmentalstewardship.org. We'll be back with some final insights on increasing forage value right after this. Stay with us.
Cattlemen and women are dedicated to managing their land and cattle in a sustainable way. They want to leave a legacy for future generations. For more than 30 years, the Environmental Stewardship Award has worked to honor these caretakers of the land and to share their stories. To find out more and to learn how you can nominate a farm or ranch for the Environmental Stewardship Award, visit the website environmentalstewardship.org. It can be tough to keep up with all the issues that impact the beef cattle business. That's why NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen is dedicated to bringing you valuable news, information, and education. The goal is to give you the knowledge you need to make the best decisions for your operation. So if you're looking for in-depth coverage of the beef industry and the issues that matter to you, don't miss Cattlemen to Cattlemen, debuting every week on RFD TV and on YouTube. Do you have an upcoming production sale to advertise? Then contact the Cattlemen to Cattlemen marketing team or your breed association to learn more.
Welcome back. As we wrap up our program here in Florida, I'd like to give each of our guests a chance to share some final thoughts and suggestions with us. Haley?
Thanks, Kevin. I'm fortunate enough to be here in Florida and get to support our ranchers like Jim and help them make the best decisions for their pastures. But I have counterparts all over the nation. So I would encourage you to find your local range and pasture specialist. They can be found at rangeandpasture.com, and reach out to them and let them help you get the most out of your pastures.
Outstanding. Thank you. Jeff, what would you say?
Be grass focused. We got to be that grass farmer, just like that row crop farmer that's growing corn, which is a grass. They're going to put in all the inputs and time to get the best bushels that they can get, the abundance of bushels that they can get. We've got to have that same focus on our forages. It's all about pounds, and if we can put the right input cost, work with our specialists in the field, work with really good ranchers, we can get those pounds, and it's going to be a game changer and a winner for that operation.
I'm reminded in these high input prices, one person told me once, you don't make money in ranching by saving it, you make money by spending what you have wisely. And I think that's what you all can help us do.
That's right.
And Jim, what would you tell us?
Here's what I'd tell you. Let these ranchers, women, men, children, tell their story. You got a great story. We need your story. We really need your story. And with the Esap Award, I'm going back to that because that really was the catalyst between a lot of opportunities that was given to us here in the state of Florida, especially here, but across the state, was that from that, we had so many people that wanted to contact us to talk about all those things that we provide to society, why you won, or what your story is, that we actually formed a nonprofit group to assist other ranchers. So we have a Florida Conservation Group, and that is made up of scientists and it's made up of ranchers. And what we do is we represent and we help ranchers across the state of Florida, help them to get conservation easements, help them to do cost share. Then you have the ability to bring those school children out here. You have the ability to bring the politicians, the policymakers out here, the government folks like DEP or NRCS, USDA, to bring them here. They know about agriculture, but Nebraska is different than Florida. So we're doing our best to tell this story and do the reach out, and it's afforded us a lot of opportunities in our state, and it can do the same for every Esap Award winner and every Region 2 award winner. If you don't win, put your application in again. I heartily say go with Esap.
That's awesome. And you're a great, great spokesperson for that. Thank you so much, Jim. And thank you for being such a magnificent host for this program. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Remember, the full range of Corteva products can be suited to fit nearly any rangeland or pasture. For help in selecting the best product for your individual situation and management goals, just visit rangeandpasture.com. Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks once again to the team at Corteva, as well as Blackbeard's Ranch and Jim Strickland for hosting us. And thank you for watching. We'll see you again next week, right here on RFD TV.